God, it's
So
more than
you might want
that.
to add those to the list. Let me check here and see if there's
Yep.
any others.
Let's see.
Nope,
Ask us.
that was the only thing that I see that of anybody else that asked a question.
All right. So I am bringing us live now. Bump, bump. Okay. So we're going live, and I'm going to check to see. Oh, boy. Here we go. All right. Let me pull up our questions here. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's a very special Ask Us Anything About Improv with my brother, my partner in crime, the guy. I think you're the person I performed the most improv with in my life. I
I
think
think the same could be
Mr.
said of
Bill
me.
Cott.
How are you?
Hi, Bill. We were just talking earlier about make your nut, that phrase. Tell the folks
Yeah.
where that comes from.
Okay. Well, for just because maybe not everybody watching knows about the theater term, did you make your nut? In other words, did you make your the budgetary amount that you expected to make in profit on this production? Well, people will say, did you make your nut? Well, that comes from the fact that they used to, actors would perform on these wagons that would go from town to town and they do a morality play or whatever. Um, and to pay for the space where they were parking their wagon, they would have a constable or tax collector come out, take the nut from their wagon from their wagon wheel, and then they'd hold on to that nut, and then they would have to make a certain amount of money. Like if the crown says you must pay, 20 pieces of silver to rent this space, well, then they would put the money back in the government's hand. The government would give them the nut. Their wagon could roll on to the next town. So that's what, when people say, did you make your nut? What it really means is, did you make enough to move on to the next production?
And that takes us to the end of our time. Thank you so much for tuning in,
It's been a
everybody.
pleasure. Thank you.
I mean, that's an interesting, we have these phrases like that we just, a lot of times we don't know the origination of it. And it's interesting to hear
Yeah.
like, oh, that's what that means.
Mm-hmm.
We have some questions here, and feel free if you're watching also, if you want to put some questions in the chat, but there's some questions. This is a chance for folks to ask questions about improv and then give our best takes on it. And so we'll give you our thoughts, and if you have any questions, put it in the chat, either on the post on my Facebook page, or we're live right now, so you can put it in the chat there. Ari is in Oslo at Impro Nuf, a great improviser. He says, tell us about a show you both thought it bombed.
One that we did together?
I guess either or. I guess one we did together, or one that we've just, like, an experience we've had. Let's do both. Has there been a show that we've done together that you thought has bombed?
No, we're perfect. Uh, I think, you know what I think? There was all things were on our side except for audience size. I think we did a show as Zero Hour. I think one of the shows that we did over at Fanatic Salon, which is a great location, a great venue, great
Oh yeah.
people, Jeff and Jane and everybody associated with that theater. But I think we hardly had any audience for it. And so it was one of those things where the audience was trying to let us know, we appreciate you, but not like big laughs. And not that, I don't think when we do Zero Hour, we really don't play to laughs.
No.
We're a little bit more dramatic, a little more theatrical, but we still are encouraged once we hit that moment of absurdity. And there wasn't any coming. And I was just like, I was a little discouraged. But every other show we've done there and just about any other place has gone, I think, better than. Oh, wait, hold on. I just remembered there was something that we did, some evening full of shows where everybody was doing like 15-minute sets or something like that.
Yeah.
Might have even been part of a festival. And we were out of there and we're like, nope, everybody was there just to waiting to perform. Nobody was there to support and watch other people play. I can't
Yeah,
remember where
I
it
mean,
was.
yeah, I know the show you're talking about. I can't remember if it was it seemed like it was a festival type situation where it was like a quick, you didn't have a full set and we went out there. I feel like we don't, there's enough in our shows that I don't ever feel like it bombs. I feel like it's
Yeah.
sometimes the audience is not sure what they're seeing because it can get somewhat surreal at times, and we don't have like sweep edits usually. Like we kind of transition internally, so I think a lot of times it's a confusion as to what might be happening at the moment, because we might just go into an edit that lasts for 2 minutes of like just us struggling or pulling something or whatever, and there's not an immediate payoff right away, and then there becomes a payoff. So I think sometimes it's just a confusion as to like, I enjoy what I'm seeing, I'm just not sure what it is because it's not like laid out like a narrative or anything.
Yeah, I think we were following acts that were very like, well, one thing was there was one act in this show where they went on to like talk down to the audience, even though it was a mostly improviser audience, talk down to them about what a Laronde was. Well, here's what a Laronde is. And a Laronde, for people who may not know what that is, that's where we follow two characters in a scene, and then we decide which of those two characters we're going to follow, and then we follow that character, and then another character comes up, and then the original character that we saw earlier drops out. So we're always adding one new character, and each character we get to see two sides. So they did that, and they went overboard explaining it to this community
Yeah.
of people who, by all rights, should have known, or could have just sat back and watched it and got it. And they proceeded to do a slacker, where they just follow one character through the entire thing. It's like, why did you bother to explain it to everybody? And I think they went up before us, or shortly before us, and then some people who were
Yeah.
really like, wham, bam, I got a big punchline right before us and after us. And we came in with this very organic form that Jeff Machowski had been working with us on, that, builds very organically, that's like nailed into the truth. And so it was not what that audience was expecting.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
it's still like, I mean, all said and done, when we performed, and we've been doing it now almost 30 years together, it's still, in no matter what the format it takes, it's still fun. That's the thing. I can't remember a time where I got off stage with you and I was like, wow, we did not connect. Like it's more like, oh, it was fun for us. And sometimes when those audiences are expecting a certain type of style and then we come on, we're still going to enjoy it and do it ourselves. And I feel pretty comfortable saying more often than not, the audience leaves kind of on our side. Like they go,
Yeah.
oh, okay, we get what this is. It just sometimes takes a while for them to understand what's happening. Sometimes for us too.
No matter what the Chicago Reader says.
Oh my God. That used to be the paper in Chicago that was like, you got to get a reviewer to come out and see the show. And then we had a reviewer come out, Adam Felber came out and saw the show, and like, he said Bill reminded him of a character from Dick Van Dyke's show,
Mel
Richard
Cooley.
Deacon.
Yeah.
Mel Cooley. And I was a conventionally handsome news anchor type. I'll never forget that one. I was like, yep, he's got it, man. Have you done any shows that you feel like, I mean, we've done shows that have like not connected with an audience or bombed or things like that. Can you remember any? I feel like it's always a story about how you're positioned going into the show by whoever sold the show, and then how they're expecting to see it, and then you leave. So I feel like it's most often than not, it's those type of scenarios. It's not necessarily the content of the show. It's more like, oh, we had to do a show in a restaurant. I did one once in a restaurant called Carnival in Chicago. It was very loud and noisy, and we were in this side room that had a curtain, and it was like a U-shaped 8-seat room, and it was like we couldn't move around. And I thought that was like not the best show to do, but still you're like, all right, let's make the most of it. Like, are there shows that stick out to you, improv shows that you're like, oh, that was a rough one, or it didn't go, it didn't go as we had hoped?
I think, you mean for us, or just that I've been in altogether? Because
I think just you've been in.
I think, okay, so we discussed the one that, we were in together, that we weren't
Yeah.
maybe the not best positioned. The one my God. So it was 8 degrees below normal. And at that point in the company, it was me, Phil Aaronsberg, um, Melissa, Glenn, Susie, Jeff Shavar on the piano,
Improvised musical.
Andy, and I think that was it. I think that was the cast at the time. So we go
Yeah.
to do a corporate event in, it was a really depressed city in Illinois that has like a clock tower, and it's like the Flint, Michigan of Illinois. You may know what I'm talking about. Do you know the city I'm talking about?
Yeah. Maybe. Let me think about it. Was it north or south of the city?
I don't know. I just hopped in a car. I
Maybe
wasn't paying attention to the
Waukegan,
rest of
Rockford,
it. Yeah.
Waukegan.
Rockford.
Yep.
So we're performing in Rockford. And like they're doing this company picnic for a bunch of people who a lot of them had already been just laid off. But it's like, hey, but we always have the company picnic and you're still welcome. So they had them.
Oh,
What they didn't tell us was that it was like all families. And you're going to do family material anyway for a sketch show, but it was outside in a tent, already a bad situation. Families, in other words, kids, and they just let the kids come up towards the stage. And then there was a guy in a big clown suit in the very middle of the tent, blowing balloons for kids out of a big helium tent. Which is why to this very day, in every improv contract, I say that there can be no other services offered during a show. Because the kids were running back and getting their balloons,
oh,
crying and screaming, fighting over the balloons. The balloon noise was happening. The parents weren't listening because they thought, oh, these people are brought in to entertain our kids. So luckily it was a 2-act show. We went backstage and we were like, haza, 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 a wizard, 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 and you do this, and I'll do this. And so we came back out and I had an engineer's cap on and a kerchief tied around my neck. And I was like, woo, woo. And everybody came in behind me like a train. I'm like, I'm Captain Bill. And now it's time for Captain Bill's Kids Improv Show. And then they went nuts and we did a perfect Kids Improv Show. And we told the person with the balloons, knock it off. You cannot do this during the rest of our show. And we turned it into a semi-palatable show, but that first act was miserable.
well, I mean, that is such a good example though of like, what do you have control over? What do you not have control over? We're making a game time call right now. We're scrapping what we're gonna do for what is gonna get us through this and still deliver that entertainment. And that reminds me of the show I did once with Nick John and Noah Gregoropoulos and Jimmy Carrane. And it was a Halloween show in somebody's driveway in Chicago in one of these like old town, like millionaires' homes. And they set up a tent and the same thing. The parents were in the back, like, entertain our kids. And the kids were in costumes and running around. And Jimmy Crane, bless him, comes out and goes, okay, kids, focus up. And I was like, oh no, this is not going to be good. And we start to do like a long form show. And I remember Noah first started with like delicate object work in a shower and these kids are running around. And I went, all right, I'm like, no, I'm just going to take over. Like, I'm not going to ask permission because we're losing everyone here. So we're just going to do short form games and make that call in the moment. So like, don't be afraid as improvisers to make a game time call and say like, okay, cool. Here's the show we're going to play. What are we going to do to make it enjoyable for as many people as possible?
And even if it's a venerated improviser like Noah Gregoropoulos, feel free to just shout out, reverse! A term he's probably never heard in an improv scene.
I mean, Jimmy, Nick, John, and Noah, great improvisers.
Oh yeah, brilliant improvisers.
Very, very patient players, and in that scenario, it's like you need to grab, like they're kids, their attention.
Yeah.
I say to everybody, do shows for elementary schools because you will be told very quickly if they're bored, if they like it, like you will learn a different skill in that situation. But so some of these things are not of your control. And when you bomb in an improv show, it's like, are you able just to enjoy it and be like, I'm in one of those shows? Like you're going to do a bunch of those shows. And once you can build up the callus to not caring anymore, like Jeff Michalski says, it's like, you got to love
Yep.
the bomb. Once you can love that and go, okay, cool. I did a silent auction for Comedy Sports where we were on a gymnasium stage, and people would go around and bid on certain things like, oh, tickets to the Bulls game, or at this concert at Ravinia. And I remember it was, I'm fairly certain it was Amanda Blake Davis and I and somebody else did this, and we couldn't say anything. So we're in a softball uniform, a Comedy Sports uniform, trying to do improv. You can't get suggestions. You can't use any dialogue. And it's like, okay, yeah. And so there, people are walking around bidding on items. They come up to us. They look at what the sheet is. They look up at us. They're very confused and they walk away. So then it's like, all right, can we get one person to bid on us? And how do you do that without saying words? You can't use any sound whatsoever. And you sit there and you go, this is now 40 minutes. This is a 40-minute show. We're the three of us doing the show are going to have as much fun as we can during this time. And in some shows, it's like, there's no saving them. Don't try to save the show. Just ride it out and be like, all right, it's that kind of show.
Yep. I need to check on my daughter really quick because I heard a sound where she shouldn't be. I'll be right back.
So you go, as a parent, you become very aware of these sounds. And Bill's daughter, Izzy, is just amazing. She's a great kid. And Bill is watching her right now and multitasking. And so Margot says, what fortitude has Bill? Exactly, Margot. Michelle Gilliam, are you open to notes? Of course, always open to notes, Michelle. That's how you learn. Just ask Jillian Bellinger. Oh, Margot, I love that question. So there's a couple questions here. Michelle Gilliam asked, are you open to notes, which is just a fun bit I do all the time where I'm like, yes. Are you open for notes? And someone goes, okay. And I'm like, you're doing great. Like, that's the note. Like, there's no constructive criticism at all. It's just like, are you doing great? Margot, is it everything okay with Izzy?
Yeah, everything's okay. I thought she was outside, but she's inside.
Oh,
it just sounded like it was coming from outside. I was like, oh no.
So Marla Caceres on Twitter, who's another improviser in Chicago, said she woke up to her kid sleepwalking at like 2 a.m. out of the house. No. How'd you like that to happen? Yeah. And her kid is it's a youngster, like 4, maybe 5. I'm not sure how old, but I was like, that's a nightmare because you wake up and it's like they heard the alarm go off for their house. So somebody opened the door and then their child is walking down the street. Unbelievable. So Margot Escott had a question. What were the qualities of your 2 top improv teachers? So Bill, for you, for the people you've learned from, what were the top 2 qualities for an improv teacher for you?
Top 2 qualities for an improv teacher. I think one of my earliest favorite improv teachers was Martin DeMott. I think a lot of people who went through the Second City system were lucky enough to at least have him at least once. And that was just patience and acceptance, which is what he's supposed to be teaching us the whole time. So when your teacher embodies these qualities of patience and acceptance, you're gonna learn that quality from them because you see it on display. There's no better way to lead than by example. So that was one. Other favorite improv teachers. Don DiPolo was another favorite of mine. I learned almost all the early games that I played from Don. I think what I learned from him was how to hop into character, how to just leap into character. And I had like my own set characters that I would go to. But after taking classes with him, I saw, oh, you know what? You could just make one crazy step with your foot and base a whole character on that. And that you could take stock lines, it didn't matter what you said, but, have, be moved by something that you're doing while in motion so that you can just step into it, roll into character. So those were two of my favorite teachers. I had a bunch of favorites, but I think those are the two that leap to mind when I think of the most nurturing improv teachers that I had.
I mean, they're both great. Like, yeah, if you were lucky enough to learn from either one of those two, it was like unbelievable. And yeah, I think definitely those qualities encourage. Like for me, I think one is like someone who's interested in what you're doing up there. Somebody who's like paying attention is like, ooh, like they get excited almost for you, where they're like,
Mhm.
yeah, keep like they're encouraging you with your instinct, and they're saying, yeah, like so that to me is a big one, and encouraging you so you feel like they're creating a safe space so you feel you can take these chances even when you fail at it, but it's created that space where it's like you don't feel like a failure coming out of it. You're like, oh, I might have failed at that choice I made, but I'm not a failure, and they encourage you to keep going. So that's like one of them. And I think another one is just kindness, man. I'm tired of like just I never thrived and learned from people who were mean or condescending or anything like that. So I think someone who can be kind in their notes and their criticism and things like that, kind and genuine, I think are great qualities for a teacher.
Yeah.
Um, it's
I
just
was fortunate
I
enough
don't
to
know.
never experience that in a class, any sort of like the negative or, that feeling like you're going to throw up because this person is teaching you.
Yeah. Well, I had it with one of the guys I had it was Del Close, who was very mean and just
I
like
think that was
it's
everybody's
like
experience with him.
yeah. And you go like I guess it's an older mentality. Like coaches used to be mean, or like so. I think that maybe is a different time. It was more accepted,
Yeah.
but it did not make me feel like I could be creative at all. It made me feel like, oh, I'm going to get chastised or penalized for this, and I just that didn't work for me. I don't like.
Yeah.
I know there are some actors like Gene Hackman who said like, oh, we need a little friction on the set to be creative and to get our best work. And I'm like, I just don't agree with that. I don't think you need
Mhm.
friction to create really good improv.
Yeah. You need to actually be acting and improvising. You don't need artificial friction. You don't need to lie and prank and surprise your
Yes.
actors or scene partners. I don't think any of that helps.
Um,
And
what
even if
is
it
the
does,
secret
that
to
means that it wasn't acting and it wasn't improv, right?
exactly? What's the secret of success to your and Bill's relationship? Is it about cats? I think it is cats. I don't know. I think that's pretty much it. Do you have any thoughts?
Um, do you mean, I'm sure you mean the musical Cats.
Yes,
Um,
of
and I would say
we're
yes.
Weber fans. We're Android Weber fans, and like it's there's no denying it. That's our form. And if you don't like cats, you won't like us on stage.
Yeah. Um, I think I think the success to what we have done and the way we started and going back from our initial run to even shows that we do now is that it's the joy that we have when we play together. We used to never stop doing bits when we met
Yeah,
doing comedy sports, and everybody there would drop the bits once they got off stage. Maybe Pat Carton was always doing a lot of bits, but most people dropped their bits, and we just wouldn't stop. We wouldn't stop characters. We would stay in character. We would
yeah.
be rapping in somebody's backseat the whole way from something to something else. And you guys stop. And so
Yeah.
somebody said, you guys should get a stage and do it there. And so that's what we did.
I mean that is true. There was no back at that time. There weren't like there was not two-person improv really. It was more like you did group stuff, and yeah, somebody's like because we would and part of it was like there was a level of immaturity if you think about it where it's like
Oh
everyone's just
yeah.
hanging out at a party everyone's hanging out at a party and here we come in it's like I'm Detective Frazier and then
Nice to meet you,
and
detective. I prefer not to be myself all evening long.
and so I think yeah I think that was the start of it, but I think it is that joy of performing and the friendship too. Like I used to think you didn't have to get along with people in your group, and I just the older I get the more I'm like no, you got to like and respect each other and go like, I can't wait to see what we're going to do. And you do have my back when I go on stage. So I think that's a huge part of the success, but it's talking to you off stage is now more rewarding than anything we do on stage. So that's the part that for
Yeah.
me is the joy now, is like, oh, we've known each other almost 30, coming up on 30 years. And like we've
Yeah.
shared family events together, and we talk about things that aren't improv, and we talk about being parents and family and things like that. So I think the key to it is like, we don't expect things from each other. We don't try to change each other. It's like, oh, this is who you are. Cool. I'm cool with that. Let's go to a diner. We also love diners, which is a huge part of it.
Yes.
We do love diners.
Yeah.
Bill, Margot says, will you come to our show on September 23rd? We can use a real improviser. So Margot and I and a couple other folks, Dina and some other folks, Nina Tolliver, we do this. She does a character where she plays like this improv teacher that works at the Discovery Center, which is like an adult continuing education place in Chicago, where you can learn everything from like learn calligraphy to AC repair. And so we do, and she runs these classes that she's in this character, and it's like bad direction, bad, like talks too much and all that stuff. So she wants to know if you'll come join us for that. And I said, oh yeah, I'm sure if the schedule works out. And you are the real improviser.
Yes, I'll be happy to if I'm available at that point, and also assuming what's going on with COVID restrictions. But yeah.
Well, it's all going to be virtual, man.
Oh well,
screw that. Cassie Harlow says Frederick, which is a character Bill used to play, and she's tuned in and watched. So hi, Cassie.
Hi, Cassie. How are you? God, I love that woman.
You talk about bits gone wrong. Cassie and I were touring with Comedy Sports, and we were down in Quincy, Illinois. I don't think you were on this show, so we had driven down like to Quincy, and after the show we had gone to this bar, which was like a townie. It was kind of like a townie bar. It was huge, and Cassie and I thought it'd be fun if we faked it like we were a couple and got in a fight. And so so we were really like, we were just doing this bit inside this bar, and all of a sudden we got like the manager came up and said, come with me, and took all the Comedy Sports, the 6 of us, I think there were, through the kitchen and go, you got to leave. A bunch of those dudes want to beat up your friend, and pointed to me because it was like, we were on the dance floor loud. And I was like, it was very scary. And so we got ushered out the back door, and they're like, y'all got to go. But we did the bit, man. We did that bit. Bill, if you could change anything about Jay, what would it be?
Quicker response time when I text or call him. Sometimes it'll be like 2 weeks, and I'll be like, it was a text. He could have just liked it. He could have just given it a thumbs up.
Pandemic. And then she asked me, what size shoes do I wear? Well, I wear 14 wide or 14. And have I ever fallen down on stage by tripping over your feet? Oh, constantly. I've constantly fallen off or tripped on stage. I've tripped a lot walking upstairs to get on the stage. I've done that several times, where I'm doing a little jog, and then I walk up and I trip. Bill, have you have any injuries? Any improv?
Hold on, really quick. While we're on the foot size, have you ever checked out the men's shoes section at Ross Dress for Less?
No.
They always have great Nikes and everything in like 14 and 15 because nobody buys them at the regular store, so they ship them out to Ross, and they really have a lot of great bigger size shoes.
I just bought these shoes, Kizik, which are, you don't have to tie them, you just step into them, and they're like,
I've heard of those. I heard about those on TikTok.
They're good. They're real. I really enjoy them. So I recommend those. Nordstrom Rack is good too, but I'm gonna check out Ross Dress for Less.
Cool.
What's your worst improv stage injury?
My worst improv stage injury. I haven't been, well, here's the one thing. If you run your leg up and down the shin bone of my right and left leg, mostly my right leg, you'll feel indentation after indentation after indentation in the bone. And that was from running up to the stage at the Congress Hotel in Comedy Sports because the stage was so high and I'd try to leap up on stage, bang, bang, and I would play through it. But it did some
Oh
real damage to
God.
my shin bones. So I think that's the most lasting damage.
Uh, I did a show once at a half finished stage, like in a place that was doing some remodeling, and it had a door, and I opened the door up to enter a scene, and I put my hand behind the door, and it was like a metal bracing,
Mm-hmm.
and my hand slid down, and it cut my palm, and
Mm.
it was like a short form game where I had to enter. And so I squeezed my hand as it was bleeding. And I also think it was like a replay. So I had to do the scene like two more times until I finally got off stage. And then I went and tried to find a Band-Aid, but that was my worst injury. We've fallen off stage a couple times, but
Yeah.
nothing that's lasting. Shari Hazlitt, hey, kindness and interested, absolutely. Buddy sent something from TikTok, and he said, "Bill, I just saw you on TikTok. How's life as an? Let's see what it is. How's life, Bill, as an is an accountant?
As an
Is
accountant.
that the
Yeah,
thing?
I did a TikTok video about there's a trend on TikTok. Are you familiar with it? Where they have a
Yeah,
song, if they ask me what I do, I'm an accountant. I'm an accountant. Um, and the joke is that they really aren't accountants. It's usually a person who's like a sex worker or somebody who like sells their underwear or something like that, and they just tell people they're an accountant when they do that trend on TikTok. Well, I actually did just an accountant thing because when I first moved to LA, I was working in accounts receivable, um, or no, accounts payable, um, for Disney. Jim Coughlin helped me out and got me a job,
ah,
working a temp job at Disney in accounting. So I literally had worked as an accountant and it was for Disney. So I was like, I'm embarrassed about both.
and you do a lot of stuff on TikTok. Like you and Keith Williams are the two improvisers I know, and I'm sure it's changed, but you really have used TikTok to showcase your skills, and especially with improv.
I love it. Um, it's less intimidating than having to just a lot of the performing we do is like just live videos, and that's primarily what I had been doing online for years. And then I realized, wait a minute, I only have to do something that's 15 to 30 seconds. I can get in, get out, be funny. And I love that TikTok allows you to use, the music that's licensed to be used on their platform. So you can
Yeah,
use music. That's one thing that I was like, well, it always sounds crappy when you use these, the, public domain music or do it
yeah.
silent. And so it just makes it so much easier to make compelling short videos. And then of course I go live too, but I just mainly do like Q&A, and then I do two different characters when I go live. One of them is Matusi Finkel, who's a gossip columnist that plays the game Taboo with people, and Mountebank,
So
who's a
funny.
mind reader who
Yeah.
does like psychic readings for people.
Now, you had posted you were going to bring the live jive back. Is that happening on a regular basis, or is
It
that not
has not yet.
happening
I'm
yet?
still. It's going to be able to happen a lot easier. Izzy starts school on the 16th, next Monday. Um, and so when she's away at school, then I don't have to worry about, like, right now, I can
Yeah.
interview, talk back and forth. I'm not going to be able to do comedy if she's in the next room, and I'm not sure if she's, going to be trying to walk out the front door. Here, I can hear
Right.
it and focus on that. If I'm doing a character bit, I am not listening to the external world. I've learned to tune all that out. So it'll
Right.
be afternoons after she's in school.
What's what's like you're probably the best character improviser I've worked with for
Thank
sure.
you.
You're welcome. What are some, do you have any hints or, I mean, you talked a little bit about Don DePaulo and that idea of like you could take a step and change into a character instantly, but is there something like, is there a suggestion you can give to folks? Because I feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel, or tell me if you see something different. I feel that people don't always jump in 100% into the character thing. It's kind of like, I'm
Mhm.
going to test it out to see the reaction versus like 100% all in. And that's when you go and you improvise, you're always 100% all in with those characters. So like, what are some like tips you can give folks as far as how to expand that and really go for it with characters?
One thing I do is rather than be like, oh, I don't know if this character is going to work or not, so I'll kind of like I'll dip my toes out, and then if it's not well received, I'll dial it back and closer to me or whatever. I do the opposite of that. I make a character move. I find out what the character is through voice or action, and then I play the character like they're happy to be let out of the bag. They have this immense
Ah,
glee at being let out and being able to play. And so, like a lot of the laughs that I get from my characters laughing or getting excited about something. So I let them get
yeah.
excited about the world around them. I let them be entertained by the world around them.
Why do you think people aren't not in general, but it's sad to me that more improvisers don't take that mentality of enjoying what's happening on stage. Why, do you have any thoughts of why that isn't more? To me, it's like if we enjoyed what's happening, it would be, people would come back and see over and over again improv, but we don't always do that. Is there a thought you have as to why people don't play with that enthusiasm and that enjoyment?
I think it's because they're afraid that their character is going to come off as inauthentic. And
Hmm.
like, remember how many over the top, weird people you interact with on a daily basis. Not so much now because we're not interacting with random people, but um, whether it be somebody you see on the street, somebody you work with, and you're like, I cannot believe, um, because a lot of my characters are based in, once I figure out what direction I'm going in, people that I actually know, or an impression of that person that
Yeah.
I know, or an impression of a celebrity, but now they're in a different world acting like this, so nobody sees them as that celebrity, or that celebrity looks nothing like me, so nobody for a minute says, oh, you're doing that person. Um, so, you know, to not judge it and not worry about it being, yeah, you want your characters grounded in reality, but they don't have to look and sound like your reality. It's somebody else's reality.
I mean, that's so true, right? It's like it's ground like my reality is different than yours and person X and Y and Z. And so like the reality that they're grounding themselves in doesn't mean it's your reference point. It's what it is for them. And it is that moment of like, oh, I'm not going to yes and my choice. It's too much.
Mhm.
I'm not sure where it's going to go. All of that stuff, which is like not your concern. Just jump in 100%. Give yourself that, again. Give yourself that freedom to fail and to be like, oh man, I'm in the midst of this, and it's not going the way I thought it would. And then just be like, ah, who cares? But yeah, those are
Yep.
great piece of advice there too. It's like, yeah, jump right in, and it's amazing that it takes one person early on in our careers as a teacher to go like, yes, encourage, like try it or try this thing and not judge you. And that's my experience a lot with my teachers at Second City, especially where like they were never judging me. They were more like, oh, what are you trying to do? Let me help you, or try this and see if that works for you. It was never like you're doing it wrong, which, so I'm very thankful um, for that. And Margot says, yes, Cats the musical. And then she says, sing a few bars. Margot, and Bill's also one of the best musical
Memories all alone in the
in the
moonlight.
moonlight.
I think that's enough bars.
Um, Bill, you're a great teacher, Margot says. If you had to choose, would you perform or teach?
Thank you, Margot. Um, if I had to choose only one for the rest of my life,
Yes.
Um, I would say teach just because I still wind up performing as a teacher. I perform in student showcases, and
Yeah.
when I'm conducting, I'm at play. So I guess I could,
Oh my God.
plus I've improvised enough for one lifetime. I'd be happy just teaching, but I still love performing, so I'm not going to stop anytime soon.
I agree. Like that's exactly how I feel too. I'm like, I've done enough performing. It's cool. If I had to choose, I would do teacher. I think I get the most enjoyment right now as a performer in general is doing conducted games where
Yep.
I'm there helping them and when they get big laughs doing that because it is still you are still performing but the focus isn't on you. So yeah, I love conducting short form games. Uh, Richard Keller says Bill Cott is an unsung hero of improv and comedy acting. Always excited to see him.
Thank you, Richard.
True. Cassie said, Cassie, tell about almost getting arrested because you were picking on your fake prego girlfriend on the road with Comedy Store. That was the other thing. She kind of looked, I think she looked pregnant, or we had developed, or we had mentioned that. And then all of a sudden, all the townies were like, it didn't become fun anymore. Once that was introduced, it was like, oh, you're arguing with your pregnant girlfriend. Not cool, man. Um, love you, Cassie says, love you, bums. Love you, Cassie.
Love you too.
And Margot Bill says you passed the audition for the show. So if you want, if you want to come.
Okay, good.
What I guess wrapping it up right now, like what are some, like if you were to go back and see yourself, like you're about to take your first improv class, what advice would you tell yourself as far as things to do, and then what would be some advice you would have as far as like things to avoid in this journey?
Wow. First thing I would have said was take notes.
Mm.
Because I think when we were going through it, not that many people took notes. Did you take notes when you were in improv class?
All the time.
Did you? Okay.
I
never did.
Yeah. But I think it stopped though. I think after like level 3, then I was like, and I brought a notebook again to take classes at Improv Olympic because it got complicated for me. So I'm like, okay, what? But I don't think I took notes just to take notes after those first couple levels, because at Second City, I thought they said like buy Impro and bring a notebook to class. So then I would do that. But yeah, I didn't take as many as I would like. And I wish I knew where they were now too.
Yep. I would love to have access to all that now as a teacher to say like, oh, I forgot that was that one little word that got through to me or whatever that kind of just became muscle memory. That would have been nice. So take notes. I would have told myself get diagnosed for ADHD because I am diagnosed now and I'm on medication, Strattera, and I've learned that I already put in play a lot of the coping mechanisms and things like that to compensate for that, but I would know how to more effectively put them in place, I think. And that would have solved.
What do you feel like that the medication is like? Do you feel it's obviously a benefit? Like you feel the results of it or the effects of it?
It helped me find my focus initially. Right now, I'm not feeling anything other than like a physical buzz, not like a mental buzz, but a physical buzz that I get occasionally. But it's more so the knowledge and the terminology. There's one of the biggest things that I realized was there's something called rejection sensitive dysphoria, which means I think that I did something to piss you off, and that's why you didn't return my message. Or I think that I did something to piss Tina Fey off, and that's why I never hear from her anymore. No, life goes on, and so some people are busy and can't return your call. Some people are in a completely different stratosphere, and there's not a way to connect with them. So but rejection sensitive dysphoria is the part of your brain that tells you you're the cause of that. You did something wrong. Don't bring it up because it'll make you nervous. And I think I'd have a lot more confidence going forward, both as an early improviser, as an actor beginning my career, and just as a person. There would have been people that I would have been less afraid to approach and just go like, "Hey, it's been a while," instead of Yeah, they hate me. I better not talk to them because I'm only going to bring up bad feelings. And
Wow,
that's
that's
just one
pretty huge.
small part. Yeah, that's only one small part of ADHD.
Yeah. Um, wouldn't that be funny? You pop up in front of yourself at that age. You're like, get diagnosed with ADHD, and then disappear. And it's like, wait, what?
I need to get diagnosed for a lot more than that.
Um, is there anything that you would tell yourself? Like for me, what not to do? I would have said like, don't go, like, don't do things with the expectation of like entitlement, which I think I went through a little bit. It's like drop any sort of sense of I deserve it. Like appreciate things for what they are and for the amount of time you spend, how little or long you spend somewhere, but don't do it with the expectation of something.
Yeah.
And don't spend your time at places that don't want you. And it's okay that they don't want you. It's like sometimes they do in the beginning, then it changes, or sometimes it's not. But like don't go past your expiration date at a place. Do you have
Yeah.
anything you would tell yourself like not to do?
Um, things not to do.
I'd also say like for me, it's like don't badmouth other groups or like I got in a habit when I was about I don't know 10 years in maybe where it was like it was easy to bash things and people. So I'd be like, don't resist that urge to bash anybody or anything or any style. It's like it is what it is.
Yeah. Um, I actually would say don't go to quite as many parties
Mm. It's
because
funny.
how so?
Well, because like you find yourself in this social situation, right? Where you're like, oh, I found my tribe. And then it's like, oh, we're just going to transition to the party afterwards. And it's like, no, to be able to find and to have those healthy boundaries and say, maybe pick and choose the ones you go to rather than like, I'm going to go to all of them.
Yeah, because I would go to every party. And there was a party going on every night. If you were in the improv world,
Yeah.
somebody was celebrating something, or somebody had a new show, or somebody just decided they wanted to go out drinking, and everybody was like, I'm codependent too. And then you would be with this whole group of people that was out at a bar just because they needed to be out at a bar. They could have easily just gone to somebody's apartment and played Monopoly and got to know each other maybe a little bit better.
But don't you feel like we all wanted to do that, but we were also too scared to say we wanted to do it? You know what I mean? Like you were
Yep.
too scared to be like, I just want to go play board games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Margot, and we'll end on Margot's question. Are you teaching virtually anywhere soon? And I'll follow up with what the heck is the improv trick, dude?
All right. So the improv trick is my improv school. Every 4 week session focuses on a specific skill, and I've just added a sketch class with me and Eric Hoffman. And Eric and I,
Awesome.
we for the first time ever did our sketch intensive. So we did it all in one day from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that was just for basic beginners, people who had never done improv ever before. And everybody wound up doing great work. And so I think we'll be doing a lot more of those intensives. And yes, so I just finished that. Just started teaching a new class, and we have more information coming out. Anybody who wants to take classes with me, go to my website, theimprovtrick.com, and send me your email and phone number, and I will never forget them. I will never lose them, and you'll get sick of my emails and my calls.
Spoken like a true improviser. Bill, thanks, buddy, for taking time out of your day. Love you to pieces. This has
Love
been
you
a really
too.
awesome time. We will talk soon. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And then, yeah, follow Bill on social media. TikTok is great. He does. I mean, so, dude, you're so hilarious on TikTok. And like, those
Thank you.
short bursts are just so great. So, TikTok
Thank you.
or follow him on Facebook. Check out the Improv Trick, all that stuff, y'all. All right, bye.